Ayy, badass black girls, and they making big moves. Ayy, badass black girls, nothing that you can't do. They are the future, I'm trying to tell ya. They want the best, no time to settle. They got the strength to handle the pressure. These are the queens, nobody better. Yeah, changing the narrative, that is imperative. They about to rock this. Tell the women that you got this. Got no time for people who are toxic. It's all love, good vibes. You know I got your back, girl. Talking issues that matter. This is badass black girl, yeah.
Welcome to a new episode of Badass Black Girl. This is your girl MJ, and I have the wonderful Mahalia with me. Hi, Mahalia.
Hey.
And today we have another special guest. Régine Romain is with us. Regine in the house. So much going on with Regine right now. Regine, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. So, greetings, everyone. So nice to be here. So nice to be invited by Badass Black Girl. My name is Régine Romain. I'm a proud Haitian American artist, educator, and visual anthropologist. And I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Regine, you recently had this wonderful book come out, and it's been doing very well. People on social media have been talking about it. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, the book is entitled Nou Pap Bliye, a Haitian coloring book. And I have to say that the idea for this coloring book came last year, right? And so what's important to note is that as tout Haitien connaît, Nou Pap Bliye means that we will never forget, right? So it means we will never forget, and specifically in reference to the earthquake that happened on January 12th, 2010. We will never forget because, one, it was one of the largest catastrophes in most of our lifetimes, right? So right now we have the pandemic that has shifted the world in a tremendous fashion. But before this pandemic, I think for most of the world, the Haitian earthquake was probably the most traumatic, right? And also in the sense of the number of people. When the earthquake first happened, there was an estimated almost 500,000. The numbers now have gone down significantly. You know, there's an estimate of anywhere of 250 to 350,000. The actual number still remains unknown. And so I went to Haiti right after the earthquake. I was very, very alarmed. I was afraid. I was concerned. As many of us were as a part of the Haitian community. We were all shocked and praying for the lives of our loved ones and praying for our collective nation, right? So even those of us that are in the diaspora, we still very much have an identity that is connected to Haiti. And so though I was born in the United States, I grew up speaking Creole, I grew up speaking French, and English came later. And so the coloring book, the idea came last year because this year, 2020 is the 10th year anniversary. And so I was like, yes, I need to get started. And then life happened and I didn't get started in 2019 and went into 2020. And then mid-March, the whole world shifted. And so the work that I do as a race equity coach at NYU was put on hold. My travel plans halt. Like everyone else, we were all paused, right? And so as the time continued, right, as this pandemic grew and more alarm grew and more borders were shut and more, we all had to quarantine. We were all on a varied version of a lockdown. And so as an artist, that time in being a lockdown didn't actually alarm me. It actually gave me time to refocus. And so it was a gift for many. I think that this quarantine period allowed many of us to refocus our lives. Many relationships grew and some ended, right? But this quarantine time was different for all of us. It's not at all the same thing. But for me, it allowed me to really focus in. It allowed me to take the time and to consider, well, what's happening? What can I do? And so I decided to push forward with the idea of the coloring book. And the coloring book is based upon the historic images that I took of Haiti in 2010. They're all photographs that I took, photographs that have been exhibited extensively in multiple exhibits all over the country and a few international places. And I said, okay, it's been 10 years, you know, since this work has really been out in the sense of what was happening, but I want to bring it current. I want to bring this story of Haiti. I want to bring the focus of healing and love to Haiti.
This is so beautiful, Regine. I know that the book is very recent, came out this year.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the reception? The few people that you talked about, that you talked to, who have seen the book, who have ordered the book, what has been the reaction to it?
Well, you know, it's interesting because this book has had an immediate reaction of like love, right? So this is the book. This
It's
is the book,
beautiful. It's
right?
beautiful.
And so this is an actual photograph. This is an actual photograph that is, it looks like we have a little bit of light, but this is an actual photograph that I took. But then as, you know, with artistic license, we added in Haiti's national flower. And so the reception has been absolutely amazing. One of the things that I think is significant, and I'm not sure if you remember, but as children, the coloring books that you had, were they of people of color, right? Often when we think about it, maybe our coloring books were of superheroes, maybe they were of our favorite cartoon, but most often they were not centered around people of color. And there's a tremendous need to shift our gaze. There's a tremendous need to shift the narrative. And as artists, to bring ourselves into multi-dimensions. And so what was really, really wonderful about this, and the reception has been very, very supportive. My first printing sold out. My first printing sold out like in a couple of weeks. And so then I went into the second press. What's been wonderful is also being able to work with family. So being able to work with family has been really, really good because I'm the photographer and I also have a poem that's written in the book that's been translated. And so I also worked with different translators to get it translated in French, of course, into Creole, into Spanish, into Igbo from Nigeria, to get it translated into Twi, which is spoken in Ghana. And the intention in having these poems in these different languages is that it allows Haiti to be spoken and considered in multiple places. So this work is not just for the children of Haiti, this work is for the world. And so I had a wonderful opportunity to be able to work with my niece, Tiffany. And Tiffani Gomez is a talented interdisciplinary artist that is both Haitian and Dominican. So she was able to bring her love for the island of Haiti, Quisqueya, into the work.
Well, I love that you guys were able to use that quiet space, you know, to create the coloring book. I think that's such a wonderful project. So do you, in the coloring book, is it mostly people, or do you have buildings? Did you pretty much stay around Port-au-Prince, or did you go to different areas in Haiti? What was your primary focus with the drawings and the illustrations?
So the drawings are mostly all people,
Okay.
right? My focus was on the people because what was important for me was to consider that the people were the survivors. So often when we think about the earthquake, we often think about the death toll, right? But the reality is that we had millions of people that were in tents, right? We had millions of people that were in conditions that were inhumane. And so really trying to shift that and bringing back the focus on our human condition, on our beauty, on our power and our strength. Mm-hmm. You know, for some, IT often gets called resilient, right? And for many Haitians, it's a term that some love and some hate, right? Because the reality is, we don't want to continue to be in situations where we are suffering,
Right.
right? Like
needing to be resilient every time.
Exactly. Like every single time. Like, hello, no, we're human, right? We're human beings, and we need to be able to, be seen as human. So the effort of this coloring book is really to focus on the people, because actually I am a people photographer. And what I also did is to bring in, cultural symbols, and to use them as interplay within the book. And so they're all portraits of people. And the focus is really to allow us to look at Haiti through the lens of love. One of the challenges for me as a photographer and before I went to Haiti was that everything that I saw the 3 weeks before I left to go were images that continued to, in a way that I didn't feel like always was accurate. It was definitely, Haiti, since even before Haiti's independence, but definitely as a nation, we have had very biased representation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We've had very biased representation in the media. So this is an effort to shift that and to bring, as I said, a vision of love.
Nice. Is your poetry throughout the book, or is it just at the beginning?
The poetry is throughout the book, but it's throughout the book in different languages. So it's one poem translated into multiple languages. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm really curious about your current relationship with Haiti, because there are so many Haitis, so many ways of thinking about our motherland.
Yes.
I know Mahalia's experience is very different from mine, for instance, because we left Haiti at different points in our lives. We returned at different points. So our outlook is definitely not the same when it comes to Haiti. Tell us a little bit about your Haiti experience.
So my Haiti experience is one that is always filled with a lot of art. My father is Régine Romain, and my father was the lead singer of the band Ibo Combo. And Ibo Combo is a band that the music, you heard it on somebody's station. So though you may not know it right now, but it was one of the popular compa bands of the 1960s. And my father was the lead singer. And so in my home, there was always art. My godfather was a member of the band. His name is Alex T. Pascal, and he's also a musician, famous guitarist. My mother also artist in her own way. And so for me, that was at the core of how Haiti entered my life, was through the arts. And so that's why currently as an artist, Haiti is always there. She's always present. As a child, I went back, I'm talking about as a very young child, because like many of the early immigrants that came to the United States in the 1960s and 70s, children were born in the States to get citizenship, but often went back home because of the support that the family could provide there while the parents were working in the States. And so as a young child, I was in Haiti quite a bit. And then my next trip to Haiti was probably when I was about 11, and I turned 12 in Haiti, and it was wonderful. Haiti is where I had my first kiss on the beach. I don't even remember his name, but I remember my birthday on the beach, getting my first kiss. It's magical, magical, magical.
And then you book on it.
And he was so cute, But his name, I don't know. If I were to see him again, would we recognize each other? Probably not. And then from there, IT has always been a part of, for me, also as a visual anthropologist. A big part of the work that I do is looking at our culture, looking at what's real about us and what's imagined, right? And there's so much that's imagined that is often the negative. And so for me, as someone that knows how photography can be used, how it can be manipulated, and how we can be well represented, which is so necessary because we often have been misrepresented, that is at the key of what I do in my work. Yeah.
I think the photography is wonderful. And I think our culture is so rich. The people are so interesting and varied that I'm sure you have plenty of material because, you know, it is, we are misrepresented and people just don't understand. And you see wonderful expressions and wonderful, you know, laws and, you know, even the clothing choices. And it's just, all that stuff is just so beautiful. And I'm sure, I mean, it's probably translated really well in your coloring book.
Hope so. Hopefully you'll get a copy and you can see for yourself.
And you know what? Something you said was so true and got me so enthusiastic when I had been thinking about it. I did all my schooling, my primary school, high school in Haiti, my formative years in Haiti, and I do remember how rare it was to find a book that really took into consideration my what I call my Haitianité. A lot of the books came from French-speaking countries, Europe or Canada, and there were many books created in Haiti. Don't get me wrong. We had the books by Frères de l'Instruction Chrétienne, but a lot of those books were very limited in terms of what they brought to the imagination. Many of them were just black and white, no illustrations. Some others were more dedicated in the efforts that they made to really portray Haitian people within those pages. But I remember the first time I actually got the opportunity to color um, Haitian characters. I completed one of my classes and I went back to the book. I'm the last of four daughters, so as the little one, I have nobody to give my stuff to. I inherited everybody else's stuff, right? And I remember, oh, look at this book from last year. I used to like it, and it was black and white. And I'm like, oh, look at this. I can turn it into a coloring book. And I did something that would drive my mom crazy. I wrote in a book. And I not only wrote, I colored in a book. And I'm thinking how sad. I mean, I didn't feel sad back then, but I'm feeling sad right now for the young girl who wanted a coloring book that was not just presenting Black people, but Haitian people. And I mean, I'm so happy about your book, Regine. I can't begin to tell you how happy I am that it exists and that
Thank
it's
you.
doing so well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am very, very excited. And also, I want to encourage others. The reality is that there are tons of illustrators out there. There are tons of folks out there that have these ideas. I took hold of the time of the quarantine. We don't know how long this is going to last, right? We have no idea. So I would encourage those of us that are creatives to take that time to write that story, take the time to finish that film, take the time to finish those illustrations or those paintings. Because one thing that we know is that tomorrow is not promised, and that when we take the time to complete our craft, it allows others to really enjoy it. And so the intention is that, you know, we have images that allow us to see ourselves in multiple places, right? So there's stories of Haiti, you know, from the pigtails and the ribbons in our hair. You know, there's all of these aspects about who we are. And I'm just excited, you know, I'm excited that we're able to tell our own story. And at this point, like, I think that's what's magical about it all, is that as creatives, we are able to take our story and we're able to do something with it, right? We're able to shift the way that we've been seen before and really do something magical with it.
I really love that picture you just showed.
Yes.
The three boys and les hommes de la patrie.
Oh, of course. Hold on, let me get it again.
I like that you like there's texture, right? There's texture to the hair. You can tell that the features are, you know, are Haitian, you know, they're Black. And I think,
yes.
I mean, I think these days also we have a lot more colors, you know. having a box of crayons didn't necessarily mean that you had the colors that represented you, you know? So it's so wonderful that now with this, like you do have pictures where the hair is like yours, you know?
Yes.
And you will find colors now that match your own, because, you know, that's, you know, it just represents our Blackness, or represents our Caribbean, you know.
Yes.
We have such a huge range of colors, you know, but
Yes.
the
And
crayon
also just
weren't exactly about that.
right. I mean, and that's the whole thing, is that we have this huge range, right? Like the reality is that IT is everything. You know, there are folks that will look at you and say, "Oh, she's not Haitian. She's Dominican.
Right.
She's Puerto Rican." I was like, "Well, have you been to Haiti?" Right?
Exactly.
People will look at me, you know, depending on how I wear my hair. "Oh, are you this? Are you that? Are you from Trinidad? Are you that?" You know, there's all of these things that come up, and the reality is that we are diaspora people. So our bodies reflect those elements of the diaspora. Right. But that Haitianness, that part of us that we're so proud of, you know, is for us to always carry. Right. Because each of us have and are connected to that fight for independence, that place in which, when we think about what IET means, calling out her children for liberty, not only for our country, but for all that were enslaved. And so that's the energy also of this book, is recognizing that we have our own stories, and our stories are significant in this global landscape.
And our people are beautiful, you know.
Hey,
you know, because otherwise it's very much it's not what, it's just like Barbies, right? You know, it's
exactly.
Just most of the times you got the Barbie that didn't look like you at all. At all. And the same with the coloring book. So, you know, this is just, yeah, it's a lovely project.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And also, you know, the other thing too is that folks ask me, they would say, "Well, how much is the book?" And I said, the book is $18.04. Right. And they're like, $18.04, why the 4 cents? And I was like, my dear, my love, you need to learn a little bit about Haitian history, and then come back to me and tell me, why did I choose $18.04?
That's so perfect. Let me ask you, Regine, I cannot let you go today without asking you a little bit about your academic work. So I know that you work in race equity. So tell us a little bit about what that entails. What exactly does that mean? Tell us everything.
Sure. So working as a race equity coach means that a lot of the work that I do specifically is looking at places of inequity within the workplace, or specifically educational inequity, looking at how the curriculum that we have within our school systems, public, charter, private school, do not adequately represent and support the needs of Black and Brown children, specifically Indigenous communities, Asian communities. Most of our educational system is white centered, right? So when we think about, where did you grow up, right? Where did your educators get educated? The curriculum that they receive, that they are actually teaching in your school, who created that? Right? There are tons of publishing companies that create curriculum, but who are those creators? And so the work that I do is mostly catered around educational equity. And I work with admins, I work with educators, I work with students, I work with families, helping to support the shift within the school curriculum, within the school culture, within hiring practices, about how do we bring more diversity. And when we say diversity, we're not talking about just numbers and, oh, I just threw in a splash of color. No, actually leadership, right? So bringing in people who can make effective change, but also looking at all around us, what does diversity and equity mean? And equity also has to do with abilities or disabilities. Right. So when we think about the needs of children that are disabled, that needs to be addressed. Right. And so if our schools are always centered around those that are not in that state, then what happens to those children? Looking at the needs of children that may have different religions. Right. So in this area, you know, it may be all people who are of one particular, but what happens to our students that are from other backgrounds? Their family may be Muslim, their family may be Hindu, their family may be Voodooism. Their family might be Yoruba, Santeria. They may have different practices, different ways of being, but how are they allowed to be in school? Like recognizing that people have their religious choice, but they shouldn't be alienated from the school culture because of that. So it's recognizing the whole scope of what students need.
What are publishing companies doing about that? Like, are they even putting books out there about that? Are they putting supplements?
Absolutely.
In there,
You know what's great?
what are they doing?
Yes. Well, I think that I think that there are some that are trying to meet the needs, right? And so when we think about what a badass Black girl needs, right? what do they need is that they need to have stories that are empowering, that are engaging. I do find that a lot of publishing companies may have more books that have brown people or people of color, but the stories are still need work, right? So when you think about, you're reading this wonderful story and it has all this nuance, it's just so well developed, right? Part of that is because you have people who are writing from their heart. They're not writing for sales, right? So if you're just writing something and you decide we can make this same story, change the name, and it's a universal story, and just it's published in Spanish and we change her name to Maria. It's published in this and we change the name. No, actually, we deserve nuanced stories, right?
Yeah, beautifully said. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Regine, I want to wish you good luck with this book. I know you already are encountering success. It's so beautiful. It's so needed. And I feel so blessed to have you as a guest today. And
Thank
I can't
you.
wait to see the book just explode
Thank you.
in
Thank you. Thank you.
2021.
I'm really excited to share this time with all of you, and I encourage all of the listeners. They can get their own copy at regineromain.com, and I'm always interested to hear what their favorite image is, right? And there's a story with each image, and so believe it or not, though it is a coloring book, there are still multiple stories that we can tell. And so I'm really, really excited about it. And I just want to say thank you to both of you for inviting me to come and spend this time with you.
And we hope that you'll come back in a
Yeah.
few months after.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can catch up again. Oh, actually, before we leave, we have a surprise additional guest.
Okay.
Oh, Tiffany's here. She's connected right now. So, Tiffany,
Hi.
hi, Tiffany. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Excited that you're here. For those who don't know Tiffany, Tiffany is Regine's niece. She was mentioned earlier in the interview, and she is the artist behind the book. So, Tiffany, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Gomez. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally. I've grown up in pretty warm areas, grown up between California and Florida. When I graduated high school, took some time off, figured myself out, and then put myself through the ringer of art school, where I learned what I do now. Beyond that, I have run and worked at an art supply store for many, many years, where I got to learn my craft even more and got to help more people, and was able to connect to the Washington, D.C. area, sort of like a art community. And I've done things from volunteering to running workshops to mentoring kids, things like that throughout the DC area. And I draw in my free time, and and for work.
I'm really curious to learn a little bit about your collaboration, ladies. So, what did that look like to collaborate on a project like this?
Well, it was, it was something that I thought about because my niece Tiffany is so talented. If you have a chance to visit her IG page, she's put some of her work out there. But really, as I told you earlier, I come from a very artistic family, so it's literally in all of our genes. And so, as I was thinking about this, I said, Tiffany, could you do this? I have these photographs. I want to turn them into illustrations. Is that something you can do? And she was like, I can try. Right. And so I was like,
Just
okay.
like that.
Right. And so it started with sending her one image and saying, okay, try this one out. Can you do this one? And so that was it. It was kind of like this back and forth, sending images, her working on the illustrations, and then going back and forth and saying, can we tweak this a little bit? Can we add this here? Can we do this? Can we, so all of that I think was, you know what? When so many people are dying because of COVID-19 coronavirus, so much of our lives are unsure of where to go. I think this allowed both of us to have a time of solace and purpose. When so much has changed, art, it became therapy. In many ways, it was a type of therapy and very healing for us to be able to work together and for us to create this. So.
And coloring is a very therapeutic process as well. So yeah, that's how often do you get to Haiti, or when was the last time you've been to Haiti?
Tiffany.
Yes, Tiffany.
Not since I was 5 years old.
Okay.
But I have been in the Dominican Republic a few times. My father's from Santo Domingo. So if we're talking about the island of Haiti, yes, I've been there several times. But across the mountain range, probably once.
And I'm looking at your Instagram page, and I invite everyone to, yes, visit Tiffany's Instagram page. She goes by Tigobidi, Tigobitti. And I mean, I'm amazed at the range of your work, the different styles that you're able to embrace, the different colors that you use. I just wanted to say, wow, congratulations.
Yes. I mean, she's really talented. I'm not just a biased auntie, just saying, oh, look at my beautiful niece, look at her work. No, she's got talent. She's got talent.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And thank you for being here. And I do have one more question for you, Tiffany. So you talked a little bit about your journey as an artist and taking some time to find yourself, which I think so many people should do, because some people rush into a profession and then they're so unhappy with it all. What are some of the lessons that you learn through your journey as an artist that you think would be useful for young Haitian artists who would like to follow in your footsteps, whether it's to create coloring books or to create art in general? What are some of the wisdom you would like to share?
First of all, especially if you're Haitian, just know that we are an artistic culture. Color is a big part of who we are. As far as being a Haitian artist, there is the only duty that you really have is to freely express yourself for who you are. There's no formula for the Haitian artist or formula for a artist. Understanding that the relevancy of the moment and of the culture is in how you express yourself and how you do things. So first things first is definitely, there's no template. Don't be hard on yourself, and just put one foot in front of the other. A lot of people ask me, oh, do you know what your artwork's going to look like in the end? And usually when I obsess over how the end result is, I actually don't end up finishing the piece. It's when I just follow each step as it comes, react to things as they happen, whether it's from brushstroke to brushstroke or project to project. You can't, you think you have one style and then another. It's not really like that. The only purpose you have as an artist is to just express yourself as freely as you can, because your ancestors, your purpose, your authentic self is going to channel through the things you do, even if you don't know what you're doing. So just do. That would be my answer.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I know.
And I'm curious to know if Regine, you want to add anything, because you come from a different perspective. You have your camera as a photographer. So is there anything you want to add?
Well, Tiffany, I think you said that very well. Thank you. That was beautiful. And I think that the one thing that I would like to add is to remember that our stories are significant, right? So I work as a visual storyteller, as a filmmaker, as a photographer, as an educator. And all of that I do is that I bring it together to share it, because I recognize that there's a place in which we reside that often does not illustrate to us just how beautiful and how powerful we are. So the work as artists, not only is it important that we continue to create and move with spirit, as spirit, kind of like just shows us where to go and what to do, but recognizing that there is a historical relevance. There is an important part of the legacy that we leave, that we are furthering the empowered legacy of independence, right? That is a part of our work as artists. It isn't our work to sit and, and to go and debate politics and all that. No, our work allows for the message to come out. And so I think just being true to the art form, being true to one's own personal vision of beauty and power, and recognizing that representation matters, right?
And I'm glad that we're giving each other space to do that, which is great, because that wasn't possible before. So
absolutely. And we always were doing it. When you think about it, all of our stories, all of it was always there. Now we have a larger platform, but the reality is that our stories, our way of being, our essence, our magic, it's always been there. It's always been there.
Well, ladies, we at Badass Black Girl are looking forward to all of your success.
Thank you.
We'll be there for sure. Can't wait to get my hands on this.
Yes. We will be sending Badass Black Girl a copy.
Thank you. But you know what? I want to encourage you guys as well. I will be buying copies for my niece. Yes, absolutely. So good luck, and we will see you again soon.
yes.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.